WWE takes shots at the AEW/CM Punk situation. Sasha Banks gives an update on her future amid recent public appearances. Veer Mahaan has no creative direction, according to reports. Chris Jericho continues to take shots at NXT, and we have confirmation on an Undisputed Tag Team Championship #1 contender match. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of WWE. So let's start off talking about a few references, a few shots fired, a few jabs by WWE stars regarding the AEW/CM Punk situation when it comes to his suspension and the fight and all this kind of stuff. Now, in the wake of all the reported backstage turmoil in AEW involving CM Punk, the Elite, plenty of people from outside the company have been commenting on the situation. Now, we're going to get to Natalya in a second because we saw sort of two instances from WWE of WWE stars mocking or making light of the situation regarding CM Punk in All Elite Wrestling. On SmackDown, I don't know if you guys noticed this, you probably did, a lot of people on social media noticed this. On SmackDown, commentator Michael Cole seemingly alluded to the subject. Now, Cole and Corey Graves were recapping Ronda Rousey and WWE official Adam Pearce's segment from SmackDown the prior week. The segment saw Pearce trash talk Ronda Rousey, which led to Rousey getting physical with him. Cole said Rousey had been, quote, disciplined internally, the results of which will not be made public. Cole also commented on Pearce saying, quote, sources told me WWE official Adam Pearce has gotten carried away. He's aired the dirty laundry publicly, hence the reason this investigation has been taken behind the scenes. Now, Cole's comments could very well be a slight dig at the recent situation in AEW. To recap, for those who are unaware, Punk opened All Out's post-show media scrum with a bang. He talked down about AEW EVPs Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, as well as Hangman Adam Page, blaming them for burying the company's biggest babyface, that being Punk. Not only did he rant about the Elite, he also went on a tirade about his former friend Scott Colt Cabana Colton. After Punk left the media scrum, of course, he reportedly ended up brawling with the Elite backstage in his dressing room. As a result of the alleged brawl, all of the wrestlers involved, as well as others in AEW, such as producers Ace Steel, Pat Buck, Brandon Cutler, Michael Nakazawa, and others, have all been reportedly suspended. Now, as I mentioned, it wasn't just Michael Cole who seemingly made reference to the drama in AEW right now, because Natalya also took a shot on social media. She took part, of course, in the Fatal 5-Way Elimination match on SmackDown on Friday. But before the show went on the air, Natalya's assistant, Bob, took over her Twitter account to announce that Natalya had never sued anyone in the match and was a backstage leader. Bob added that Natalya was eating a muffin while dictating that message. A short time later, Natalya followed up by tweeting that it would be her 651st victory if she won the Fatal 5-Way, adding, quote, no one can touch me, I'm the best of all time. Now, of course, as I mentioned, Bob's tweet was a reference. Some said, oh, it's a thinly veiled. It's not very thinly veiled, is it? Really? Saying, I haven't sued anyone, referring to Punk and Cabana's lawsuits. Talking about eating a muffin, which, of course, that's exactly what CM Punk was doing. We've seen all of the pastry reviews in the last week or so. And called herself a locker room leader, which Punk has referred to himself as several times. She even called herself the best of all time. Not that much of a stretch from the best in the world. Now, the Natalya stuff, I think that's just Natalya just trying to, get a reaction on social media. And frankly, it worked. So good for her. And I thought it was well done. The bigger thing for me isn't the Natalya stuff. The bigger thing is Michael Cole doing it on commentary, because Michael Cole does not say anything. I mean, maybe it's changed a little bit, but that was a clearly pre-prepared, rehearsed segment and rehearsed verbiage that was used there. And clearly Michael Cole has been told exactly what to say in that situation. And it shouldn't come as much of a surprise. Triple H and CM Punk's heat is legendary. It really, really is. If you recall, I forget which documentary it's in. It might be in the Ultimate Warrior documentary that's on the WWE Network, which would have been 2014. So I think it's that one. In the documentary, of course, Warrior goes to WWE headquarters and he meets with all of the people and all this kind of stuff. One of the people he meets with, of course, is Triple H. And he goes into Triple H's office and they've got a poster for the Royal Rumble that was just maybe a month prior or a couple of months prior at that point at the time of filming. Now, on that poster is one CM Punk. It was actually his last appearance for WWE, and he walked out of the company the following night prior to Monday Night Raw. And on that poster of the Royal Rumble in Triple H's office, just so happens to be a post-it note over the face of CM Punk. And we know CM Punk has recounted it in his in that now infamous podcast that he did with Colt Cabana, that Triple H was in that meeting where CM Punk went off to Vince McMahon and he called out Triple H by name in it, saying, you know, you buried me, I put you over when I shouldn't have, and he's called Triple H all of the names under the sun. So we know the heat is very much there between Paul Levesque and CM Punk. So Paul Levesque telling Michael Cole to poke fun or throw a jab at the situation of two things that he doesn't like should hardly come as a surprise. Let's be honest. Triple H does not like CM Punk, and also he doesn't like AEW. The interview he did with Ariel Helwani prior to Clash at the Castle proves that his ego was absolutely bruised by what happened when it comes to the Wednesday Night Wars. And people can say it doesn't matter, or people can say, oh, who's really laughing now because Triple H is in charge of creative and talent relations in the much bigger company, and that's fair, but everyone doesn't like losing. Nobody likes losing. And whilst Triple H can go out into these interviews that he has done since and said, oh, they beat our developmental, well done, or it was never a war, it was about putting on the best product, that is revisionist history. That is exactly what that is. Triple H, on multiple media calls, on every interview he did, prior to the Wednesday Night Wars, even a little bit after, but certainly prior and during the Wednesday Night Wars, we're not developmental, we're a third brand, we're the same as Raw and SmackDown, they can be Hollywood and we can be Broadway, you know, all this kind of stuff, right? He said we're a third brand, and if it was developmental beats your main roster brands at Survivor Series in 2019. And the reason that NXT won at Survivor Series in 2019 was to give them momentum in a war that they were losing against All Elite Wrestling. Okay? And to say that it wasn't a war, NXT is on the USA Network to counter-program. It was put on to counter-program AEW. And people can say, well, yeah, but it was on Wednesdays before. It was a 1-hour pre-tape show on the network. It was not 2 hours live in the same time slot as Dynamite. So, like just don't even go there. So, of course, going back to my point, Triple H doesn't like CM Punk. He also doesn't like AEW. So why wouldn't he poke shots at it? And if you're an outsider looking in, of course, everyone's been poking shots at AEW recently because it's a mess. The company's in complete chaos behind the scenes. So, you know, for a company, you know, you could argue it's pot calling the kettle black because WWE has had its points when things have been chaotic, but arguably never to the extent of AEW. I know they had the stuff with Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart in '97, but, you know, historically, WWE, particularly when Vince McMahon was there, had a tight handle and wasn't afraid of making examples of a lot of people. Yes, they had flashpoints, but never to the extent of what we've seen, really, from AEW in the last few weeks. So it shouldn't come as much of a surprise. Again, I think it's harmless fun. And let's face it, how many times has AEW thrown shots at WWE, right? People will get more upset about this than I do. I just think it's par for the course, you know. And when people go, oh, it's lazy or it's stupid, focus on this. Look, it's competition poking fun. That's all it is. Sasha Banks, of course, there's been so much discussion about Sasha Banks, her future. Is she going to be coming back to WWE? Will she ever come back to WWE? Of course, recently, she's been making quite a few public appearances. Of course, she was, her and Naomi, rather, were walking the runway during the New York Fashion Week last week, and she's done an interview regarding her future, and as I mentioned, she's been working on a number of projects during her time away from the ring, most recently, as I mentioned, walking the runway during New York Fashion Week. Now, speaking on H to Radio, Banks told fans to stay tuned, teasing an upcoming music project, noting she's focusing on music and acting at the moment. Banks said, quote, "There's so much that I'm creating right now. It's all under an umbrella. I'm an actor, writer, producer, extraordinaire entertainer, all within those realms. I'm doing something. You just have to stay tuned. You have a microphone. That's something big I want to do. Not podcasting, but music. I don't know if that's the #1 next thing, because acting, there's a lot of things coming up in acting right now. I'm really starting to focus my mind around music and the music realm and being kind of a director in that space of creating a musical video piece." Now, of course, Banks hasn't appeared on WWE television since walking out on the May 16 edition of Monday Night Raw, or prior to Monday Night Raw, during Monday Night Raw, regardless of who you believe, alongside Naomi. Now, it was reported back in August, of course, that the tag team had agreed in principle to make their returns to WWE. However, since then, we still have yet to see either female superstar return. Do I expect Sasha Banks to return to WWE? I still do. I think there might just be a situation here of one, finding the right time. Is it the right time to bring them back right now? We're seeing lots of returns right now, but if AEW is a good example, and I think it is in this instance, that you don't want to be having returns or surprises every single week, because if you do, it loses its potency really, really quickly, and you don't want that. You don't want that. So I think it's going to be a case of finding the right time for Banks and Naomi to return. I do think they will return, no doubt about it. But really, what's coming up now? We're in this weird space of the year, as you head into the fall for WWE, because between now and Survivor Series, not a lot really happens. WWE, and I think this might be a factor of maybe when she comes back, is Monday Night Football is going to be returning. Of course, the NFL season's just started up this past weekend, so maybe they might want to save it for a night like tonight, for Monday Night Raw, you know? But I think they might be saving it maybe for Survivor Series, or waiting for something to happen. I know we've got a Women's Tag Team Championship match tonight on Raw again, so that could possibly be an indication of when Sasha Banks and Naomi return. But I do expect them to return. I do. I think with Triple H now in charge, I think those fences are being mended. Triple H spoke about it in his interview with Ariel Helwani. He's asked about Sasha Banks and Naomi, and he said that it's a process and it's an ongoing process. Didn't confirm, of course, that they were going to be returning, but I think the general impression is that they probably will return. Again, it's just finding the right time and finding the right moment. Honestly, we've seen Sasha Banks and Bayley still best friends in real life. They recently attended a baseball game I saw on social media. I believe that was in Florida. And, again, Bayley's team is in action tonight on Raw. Maybe Sasha Banks comes back and joins Damage Control. Maybe Sasha Banks and Naomi both join Damage Control. Imagine that. You know, we're assuming that they're going to be a trio as a faction. Maybe it's going to be a 5-person faction. We've never really seen that before in WWE. A 5-person female faction, you know, from week to week in storyline. That's quite interesting. And maybe that's the direction that WWE go for when it comes to Sasha Banks and Naomi. But I expect them to be back at some point. Absolutely. Veer Mahan, he was coming for so long, and it appears that there aren't any significant imminent creative plans for WWE superstar Veer Mahan, according to a report by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select. Now, Veer's last WWE match on TV was on the August 15 edition of Monday Night Raw, where he defeated enhancement talent Bo Keller in under 2 minutes. Before that, his last match on Raw was on the June 26 episode in the Last Chance Money in the Bank qualifying battle royal, where the winner of the match was Matt Riddle. On the July 18 episode of Raw, Veer did have a segment with Zara Schreiber, which he showed a change to his monster heel character. While she was preparing to interview The Miz, Veer randomly entered the frame and stared down Schreiber. He then looked at the camera, smiled, and said "boo" before laughing. That great creative right there. So it would appear that they don't really know. They don't really know what to do with Veer Mahan, and that is kind of the story of his WWE career, really, is it not, right? They don't know what to do with him. That whole Veer is coming to Raw thing soon, it got farcical because they aired the vignettes, and this was so typical of Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard's booking of WWE at the time, is that they booked this guy's, put these vignettes on Raw to fill time, had no idea where they were going to go. None at all. Well, he's going to be coming to Raw. It was laughable. He was going, what, for 9 months or something ridiculous, and then it became a meme on social media, and they decided to debut him. But again, when they debuted him, they had no plans. They just went, okay, it's getting over. Accidentally, we'll debut him. But they had no plan whatsoever. They had him beat up the Mysterios for a bit. That's it. And clearly, Triple H is looking at the same thing going, I don't know. I can't finish off someone's murder mystery novel that they never really had an ending to themselves. So I don't know what the case is going to be for Veer. I would maybe think he just gets completely repackaged and moved into something else. And Triple H is probably just trying to figure out what that repackage will be and who it will involve. But clearly, you know, it looks like that. It looks like they haven't got any plans for Veer Mahan. Now let's talk about Chris Jericho. We spoke a little bit about AEW in this video, and Chris Jericho recently made some headlines when he was reacting, of course, to Triple H saying that AEW beat WWE's developmental system. Now, in an interview with Inside the Ropes, Jericho accused Levesque of changing the narrative and changing the history of NXT's role within WWE. He said, quote, "Makes me laugh because when it started, it was not developmental, it was a third brand," Jericho said. "Of course we beat the developmental, whatever you want to call it, who gives a shit? It was such old news. You know, the show sucks and NXT sucks. It's not a good show and they know it." Now, Jericho suggested that Levesque made his comments out of spite. Quote, "He's angry that we beat them, and he probably is angry that we exist," he continued. "But, you know, we don't care about WWE. We care about our own show. We care about putting on the best stories we can put on. We care about building our fan base and building our ratings, and we will continue to exist." Jericho also took aim at WWE's finances, claiming, quote, "My boss has a lot more money than his boss does, a lot more." He also theorized that Levesque was uncomfortable with having vibrant competition. Quote, "They had a monopoly for so long, they don't like the fact we exist, that's fine. We don't care that they exist, God bless them. And they're running a show in front of 50,000 people. Why would he even care about us? But you know, he should, and he does. And that's why he says those things. It's funny because we embarrassed them." Now, there are so many different things to pull from that. Now, I don't disagree with some of the things that Jericho is saying, but I also agree with some of the things also he's saying. He's right when he's saying that it started off not as a developmental third brand, and he is trying to change the narrative, and that's fine. And him saying, you know, the show sucks and NXT sucks, it's not a good show and they know it. NXT was not really that great during the Wednesday Night Wars, honestly. I felt that, and again, this was my caution when Triple H took over the book for WWE, is that a big criticism of NXT towards the end of Triple H's tenure is that it was very formulaic. You knew what was going to happen. It just felt bland, really, you know, and there was nothing really truly massively exciting about the show. It lost all momentum, and that was the case. Now, when Jericho says, you know, we don't care about WWE, that's also a lie. AEW clearly cares about WWE in the same way that WWE rather cares about AEW. They care about each other. You can come out publicly and say, oh, we don't care about the competition, but of course you do. You reference each other on TV every other week. Of course AEW cares about WWE because they want to be WWE. They want to be that big. They want to have the ratings that WWE has. They want to have the money and the success that WWE has. And they can talk about, well, my owner's got more money than your owner. What kind of playground high school BS is that? And I know Tony Khan's come out and said that and said, well, I've got more money than them, so I'm not going anywhere. And I'm sure AEW isn't going anywhere. I think those people that have celebrated over the last couple of weeks saying that it's the end of AEW and AEW's disappearing and it's like WCW. No, AEW is very, very, very well financed. They are not going anywhere. Now, the only thing that could put them into a decline or hiatus would be if they lost their television deal. They're not going to. Chances are they're going to renegotiate a probably even better deal with Warner Media Discovery. That's just how it's going to be. And, you know, I think it is a good thing that both companies exist. But for Jericho to say that we don't care about WWE is just as laughable as Triple H saying, oh, they beat our developmental. Stop trying to change the narrative of things. And I do agree also what he says, that, you know, Triple H clearly holds a bit of a grudge that AEW did embarrass NXT. It was, you know, the expectation was put on him from above that we're going to put you on USA and you're going to be 2 hours, you're going to be live, beat this upstart company. And they couldn't. And frankly, as I mentioned several times, AEW should have won that war. I know it's WWE and it's a WWE product in NXT, but it wasn't like going up against Raw or SmackDown. It was going up against a brand that every time they made somewhat big stars, they left. That was it. And you look at the stars that were in AEW at the time and are still there. Jericho, Moxley, especially in that early days. Jericho, Moxley, Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega. If they were in WWE, they would be on Raw and SmackDown. They wouldn't be on NXT. So AEW should have always won that. And they did, comfortably. And that's the situation. You can't change history. That's just the facts. Finally, we have a match announced for SmackDown next week, a #1 contenders match to determine the next challengers for the undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions, the Usos. It will feature, as you can see, the New Day, the Street Profits, the Alpha Academy, and Los Lotharios. Of course, they tried to have that match on Raw last week. However, Braun Strowman returned to WWE during the match, laid out all 4 teams, and led to it being a no contest. Don't know if it's going to happen again. It could happen again on SmackDown. Of course, we did see Strowman attack the Alpha Academy on SmackDown last week, powerbombing both Otis and Gable. So I guess that could happen. As far as who's going to win, I don't know. I really don't know that one. Maybe the problem isn't it, is that, okay, if it's the Street Profits, how many times have they done Street Profits over the summer versus the Usos? Good matches, don't care to see it. It's not going to be the heel team, you would think. Is it going to be Alpha Academy or Los Lotharios? No. So is it going to be the New Day? And if it is the New Day, great. Usos and the New Day, they always have great matches, no doubt about it. But is it different? You know, I don't know if it particularly is, but we'll have to wait and see. But there you go, guys. That's the latest WWE news. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.